Good evening. Thank you for joining us for our livestock drought management webinar. Our speaker this evening will be Jessie Jim.
Okay, thank you, Sharon, and thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. This evening's presentation, I'm going to be covering livestock drought management strategy for a few ranchers out there. Like Sharon had said before, my name is Jessie Jim, and I am the Native American Producer Success Project Field Coordinator. What is livestock drought management? So, if we look on the web, the definition is there. Drought management is the balancing of forage and water supply with forage and water demand. So the choice becomes increasing when the supply of the forage through the purchase of hay or other feedstuffs are decreasing, and the demand for forages and water through reduction of livestock dependent on those resources. So we manage our livestock depending on the drought. So the more, the less drought we have, the more livestock we can have, and vice versa, pretty much. And so how do we manage through drought? How do we manage our livestock through drought? Well, there's a couple of ways. And of course, number one is always going to be adjusting your livestock inventory. And that's very hard to do so. And we'll go over a couple of ways to go through your livestock if you have an own rating. And then also using existing forages. So if you have your pastures, you're going to go ahead and do some rotational grazing if you are able to. We'll briefly go over that. I did provide a presentation a couple of weeks ago on rotational grazing. So if you guys want to, if you want more information on rotational grazing, you can go into our Facebook and YouTube channel. And then also, last but not least, another painful thing to do while managing your livestock drought managing is finding alternative feeding sources. Okay? So if you guys have any questions throughout the presentation, go ahead and raise your hand. I'll unmute you, or you can type your question into the chat box or Q&A box, whichever way you guys feel comfortable with it. So number one on the list is adjusting your livestock inventory. What they call it is culling. Okay, you need to go through your herd. The reason why you want to do this is because the lower numbers are going to reduce the demand for feed on your pastures, the way you do that, is by preg testing your herd. So number one, the animals that are going to go are your open cows. And it doesn't just pertain to open cows, but to your open sheep as well. And if you're raising horses, what horses are you using the most? That's the one you keep. If not, adjust how you need to. And so open cows, of course, and then also your older cows, because it's going to be a lot harder for the older cows to make it during drought. And then also the low producers, so those that maybe throw a calf one year, next year she doesn't do anything, and the next year she does something, and so you want to maybe push her out, or maybe she does have a calf each year, but I know we've run into this problem here at the ranches. We do have a cow. She throws a calf every year, but every calf she has, it's always a small calf and always has a hard time finishing out. And so if you have a cow, sheep that's throwing those kind of calves, or lambs, those are the ones you want to move because it requires more feed and more of your time. and then also cows that are calving late. And so you generally want to keep your calves coming during a set time. So if you give them maybe 6 weeks to all calve out, and then you got another, you got your cows, couple cows calving out maybe 4 weeks later, then you want to move those because it throws off your feeding system. If you're feeding out, if you're dry lotting them, it throws them out, and I'll cover that more later on. And so you want to make sure, after you call your cows, you want to make sure that you're providing feed for, your replacement heifers and then those that are producing cows each year and are low maintenance. Okay, so touching back on using your existing forages, you guys weren't able to tune in on my last presentation. We covered using rotational grazing. It is more cost. The cost is high in it only because if you haven't already got your fencing up of your pastures, that needs to be installed. That's the only way that rotational grazing is going to work. You've got to cut off all the other animals from your pasture and then cross fence. And the reason why you want to cross fence is you're going to rotate your animals in each pasture. And so you want to make sure that your stocking rate is appropriate for your pasture. Okay? So if you have 100 acres in one pasture, you can probably throw on 25 cows and move them around. Break up. If you have 4 pastures, 100 acres each, break it up. There's 12 months out of the year, break it up, and then to where there's 3 months in each pasture. So that's how you want to utilize your pastures, and then make sure that you do let it rest, let it grow back, and then move them in. So a lot of times, a lot of people say, okay, this is our winter pasture, so we're rotating them off during the spring, summer. But if we have no rain, if we have no precipitation, your winter pasture isn't going to be doing much. It's not going to be growing, and if it is growing, it's going to be bare minimal. And so you want to make sure there is grass growing and it can hold your herd. So if it's not, then you got to make the decision to defer it. Keep them off a bit until it's ready. So make sure they rest, and if it's drought conditions, just gotta, it's a lot of visual decisions made off of it. So there's grass growing or not growing, then that will be the deciding factor if you're going to let your livestock back onto your pasture. Okay, so there on the third bullet, if your carrying capacity is lowered during drought, it can improve your grazing management if there is rain. So right now, we all know that's getting pretty tough out there. And this is, I think, year number 4 to where we're getting bare minimal rain. And here on our ranch, our dirt tanks, this is the 4th year that it's been dry, and we've relied on the monsoon rain to come in and fill it up. But for 4 years, there's nothing. So if there's no rain filling it up, look out there on your pastures, and you'll see, we all see that there's nothing growing. And so go out to your pastures and check it out after monsoon season. It may look green from the distance, but why is it green? The first thing after a drought that's going to grow back is the weeds. So that's also a misconception. People think, well, it's green out there, we got grass, let's turn them out. Well, what's making it so green? Okay, so, and then also along with adjusting your herd number, and then also if you're able to do rotational grazing, another strategy to use is to wean your calves early. And the reason why you want to wean your calves early is because the cow, the mom, is going to require less energy to produce milk. And so 30 to 40% less. And a lot of you guys see it. A lot of you guys see that the cows that calve out, they're perfect, their body condition is perfect, but once they start lactating, their body score drops. And that's because, they're putting everything into making milk. And so we can wean early, that's ideal. And usually the normal time to wean your calves is 7 months, but you can cut that in half, like 3.5 months if you really wanted to push it. If it's really that bad, you can wean them early. And there's a couple of ways you can do that. Weaning your calves is using, weaning plates, and they're only like $1.25. $1.25. You buy them at the store, and you just put it on their nose and give them 1 to 2 weeks, and they'll start to be independent from their mom. And you can separate them and then put them on some feed that can help them grow, and then of course that can help the mom. And all they got to worry about is themselves. Okay, so if you still got them out, if you got your pairs still out on the pasture, and your pastures aren't producing as much grass as they can, it's going to be a lot harder for those pairs to keep their weight on, and then also to grow. So that's what you have to look at. If they're starting to, their ribs starting to show, their backbone starting to show, and they're just having a tough time, that's when you're going to have to make a decision to start feeding them out or to move them. So that's one option, to wean your calves early. Okay, and this just covers what I was saying earlier, that it's hard for them to gain weight with pasture with minimal growth. And so when you do wean your calves, they need to be fed high grain, high protein feeds. So you got to be careful. You got to be careful not to just throw them on alfalfa and, 4-way and expect to see something right away. You think about it, they're coming off a dry pasture where a lot of that grass is brown, and there's hardly any protein and any kind of nutrients in those grasses. Then they go straight to green alfalfa, really rich feed. You're going to run into the problem of bloat. And so start them out just I think, well, your feeding would have to be alfalfa grass mix. And the grass is very important because that's your fiber. And we all know what fiber does. And that just helps the digestive tract digest their feed. And then you have the alfalfa. That's going to put the weight on them as well as your grains. So you want to be careful on what kind of grains you give them. Okay, so there I have some of the percentage of protein that's recommended. Okay, 16 to 18% protein. You can look on the feed bags, on the feed labels, and it'll tell you how much protein. Those supplement tubs in the feed store, they're anywhere from 20 to 24% protein. Okay, so that's a little high for them, but if you're feeding supplement tubs, with their moms, and it's learned behavior, they'll know what to do. So just look out not to feed them too rich of a feed. So if early weaning is not an option, if there's the facilities, you don't have the facilities to do early weaning, then you can be creek feeding. Okay, and if that's not an alternative, you have to think about supplementing your cows. Okay, supplementing your cows. I'm sure many of you guys are doing this right now. Is you have to supplement feed, both hay and protein. So protein, and the supplement tub, all that's used for is number one, protein, and number two, it increases their appetite. And so that's supplement tubs are good when you have cows that maybe never had 8 different grasses than what's out on the pasture, or they're just having a hard time adjusting. So that increases their appetite to where they're going to start cleaning up what you feed them a lot better than what they would do is wasting it and pushing it to the side and starving themselves out. Cows will do that. They'll almost starve themselves to death before they'll eat any kind of foreign hay to them. So what I like to do when the cows are out in pasture, of course they got their grasses out there, their shrubs, what they have out there, and then I'll throw out some alfalfa, and then also some Bermuda grass, ryegrass, and so to get them to where it's not a complete shock to them. And so, like I said before, a lactating cow will require 30% more feed. How much feed does a cow require? Usually it's 1.5% of their body weight. So if a cow's weighing, 900 pounds, and so about 10 pounds of feed per day. So just remember to limit your feeding grain. Requires high level of management, meaning if you're going to feed grain every day, how much time is it going to take from you to go out there and feed them? So you want to keep the amount of time down, feeding them, because your time is money in the end. And so, when you're feeding your cows, it makes a lot of sense to group your cows, because we all know cows that have calves on them require a lot more feed to feed them. Cows that are open or still in their gestation period require little to, bare minimal feed. And so we don't want to overfeed, because we all know that those cows that don't have are producing milk, they'll overdo it, but those that have calves, they may be underdoing it. So it's an idea if you're able to group your cows. And so what I do, if one cow is having a hard time picking up weight or holding her weight, what I'll do is pin her up by herself and free feed her, and she'll pick up the weight 1 to 2 days. Well, not 1 to 2 days, 1 to 2 weeks. She'll pick her weight back up, and she'll be ready to hustle a lot more, and she won't just be bullied out of the feed with the other cows. And so you want to, watch, as I mentioned before, the body scores of your cows. With cows, it's 1 to 10, and you want to keep them at least at a body score of 5. And you can run into the problem of having too fat of a cow if you're feeding them out. And, it's nice to see, but you can run into the problems of them not getting bred back because of their weight, and then also them not producing a lot, too much. And so body score of 5 is pretty good. And so that's how you'll adjust their feed. they're starting to just get a little too big, starting to round off a lot. What you can do is just throw in some grass hay. And what grass does is just, like I said, helps their digestive tract, and then it holds their weight. That grass hay is perfect for holding their weight. If they're starting to drop some, that's when you can use alfalfa. And you try to use less alfalfa because we all know alfalfa is really expensive. And so that's how you can use alfalfa. That's what I do anyway. Okay. Supplements for forages. Of course, you got your hay. You got them going on hay, and if you got them going on grain, you got them going. And then also, I did mention your supplement tubs. And there's the range cubes. And then there is your liquid supplements, your molasses blocks, protein blocks. I think your liquid supplements, the nearest place in this area to get them is at Basin Co-op there in Durango. And that is going to be purchased in bulk. And, I did read an article on, what's the difference between your liquid supplements and then also your supplement tubs and your protein blocks. Well, liquid supplements, of course, is locating it. Where can you find it? Because, if we go to TNR, if we go to Tractor Supply in Gallup or in Farmington, you won't be able to find liquid molasses. And the only place, like I said, is at Basin Co-op. So that's number one, is location. And then, as far as consumption, yes, they'll consume it a lot faster. But, for example, I'm down here in Crown Point area to Durango, then I got to go back up there. How many trips? It's not really cost effective. I think if we had a herd of 100 plus, then yeah, that would be the route to go. But, small time rancher, I would say supplement tubs are your best option. You get a 200 pounds, and it's going to be $60 to $65, and you can put 15 cows on one tub and, rotate it out. Maybe, I think we're going through every 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, putting in a supplement tub. Protein blocks are good. They're not that heavy, but they will go through it a lot. And so you got to buy a lot of protein blocks, and it just gets messy. It breaks down, and then there's some waste to it. So supplement tubs are what you should do, what I recommend in this area. And then grain, depends how many you're feeding, what you're doing. If you're getting your steer calves, your heifer calves, you're weaning them and you're putting them on grain, then yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and do it. Get them ready. It's just, there's a lot of cost in that if you're doing a whole herd, and then on top of that, your time to feed them, because we all know if we free feed grain, it's going to be gone within minutes. And so some will get too much, some will get too little. And then self-fed supplements. Those are a lot easier to feed your cattle. They know what it is, they know how to eat it, and then less time. The only time you're going to go out there is to dump it off and then to pick it up. And so those are some of the supplements you can give your animals. If you're feeding sheep, always look at the copper level. If there's any kind of copper in it, I wouldn't recommend feeding to your sheep, only because they can get poisoned from copper. And so the best way to avoid that or any kind of scares is If it has copper in it, leave it alone. Or if the label says can be fed to sheep. I know this presentation was pretty short, but I've shared pretty much what everybody knows, and I'm sure is practicing. We did have back in January, we did have a drought management webinar series with the USDA Climate Hub, and they did predict the outlook on drought this year to be longer. So what does it look like now? It's getting pretty bad, and I know Navajo Nation is putting water use limits out there on, not just producers, but on everyone that's hauling water. The water wells are going dry. Nationally, it's the same thing in the mountain area, in this area, Rocky Mountain area, sorry. We will have a presenter next month provide an update on the drought in this area, where we're at, and maybe what's going to happen. Does anyone have any questions? Just to add on, we will have NRCS provide some updates August 3rd on the programs that are out there, what you can do. Like I was saying earlier, we did have rotational grazing, and so they do have the program, EQUIP program, that will help with fencing, and that's a big thing. And then also FSA does provide assistance, livestock drought assistance. There's a lot of programs out there that many of you guys can take advantage of. If you want more information, email me, call me, and we can get together and talk about it. So, does anyone have any other questions? There's not that much more information I can give to you guys except, the strategies, culling, wean your calves early, and supplement your feed. And then if you guys need, if you have any questions on how to feed your cows, what to feed your cows, and what's best, email me, call me. I think one thing that we'll take away from this drought is we'll figure out how to feed our cows good and how to get their weights up there. And then also, we'll be better range managers after this for sure. All right, guys. So, if you guys have any questions, like I said, email me.
Our Native American Producer Success Project is a collaborative effort between the NAE Inc., New Mexico Cooperative Extension Service, and the NAE College Land Grant Office. The project is funded by USDA's Office of Partnership and Public Engagement, Outreach and Assistance for Socially Disadvantaged and Veterans Farmers and Ranchers Program. Native American Producer Success Projects, our goals of the NAPS project is to increase the profitability and long-term sustainability of Navajo farmers and ranchers. To achieve this goal, activities in 4 key areas are being undertaken to improve Navajo farm and ranch operations, to increase Navajo farmer rancher knowledge of and access to available programs and technical assistance provided by the United States Department of Agriculture, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Navajo Nation, the New Mexico Cooperative Extension Service, the Dene College Land Grant Office, and others. To strengthen the organizational capacity of the Navajo Farmer and Rancher Congress, and to address the current and future needs of Navajo farmers and ranchers. Also, to facilitate Navajo farmer rancher use of USDA's NRCS, FSA, and RMA programs.